Hey guys, Kevin Dillon here with Kevin Duffy at Gillette Stadium as we're talking about the New England Patriots 2018 NFL Draft Class. It's finally in the books. The Patriots made two final selections since the last time we talked to you. They took cornerback Keon Crossan out of Western Carolina and then tight end Ryan Izzo out of Florida State. Both are probably long shots to make the roster, so we won't spend too much time talking about them, but it's big draft class. After all these trade downs, the Patriots end up with 9 players here for the Patriots. So a ton of guys in this draft class. Just in general, you look at this class. What do you think? How'd they do?
The major takeaway is, I think it's pretty stunning that they did take a quarterback, but they took one in the 7th round, so they didn't really make a serious run at someone who reasonably can be considered like a Tom Brady successor. You never know. Maybe Edling ends up being a diamond in the rough. But given the resources they had, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks coming in, I think the conventional wisdom would suggest that they were going to try to make a push and get a talented quarterback at the top of the draft. Tom Brady's 41 years old. When Tom Brady was 37 or 38, they drafted Garoppolo in the 2nd round. Even 2 years ago, they drafted Jacoby Brissett in the 3rd round. So you figured they would, at the very least, take one in the 2nd, or maybe trade back into the 3rd or 4th and take one. They pretty much bypassed that altogether. Took Danny Etling in the 7th round, who's probably just a project, kind of a long shot. So surprising that they postponed this to another year. It just tells me that, they had the chance to take Lamar Jackson if they wanted. They could have taken him twice, and they didn't. So I don't think they love Lamar Jackson too much. And if you talk about the guys later in the draft, they had the chance to take Kyle Lauletta too, and they didn't really want him. So I think they probably evaluated the prospects and decided that those guys, they didn't see them as someone who had the potential to be Tom Brady's successor. So they pick up a few extra picks. They get Chicago's 2nd rounder in 2019. They get Detroit's 3rd rounder in 2019. So they do have now some draft capital next year to potentially move around the board and try to find someone next year.
Yeah, you look at what they did here. Danny Etling he's not going to be the quarterback of the future. He's a good player. He can has good arm strength, but he struggles under pressure and he has some mechanical issues. So if the Patriots are lucky, he's Brian Hoyer. He's something along those lines. But it would take a lot for him to turn into like the next starting quarterback.
Yeah.
But then you look at some of the other players. They drafted some players to win now. You draft a running back in the 1st round. That's a win now move because running backs don't last that long. You draft Isaiah Wynn, who could play left tackle, could play left guard, could help them out in a bunch of different ways. So it seems like the Patriots are trying to make some moves to improve next year's team, and I think that's just an interesting development considering all that's gone on in the offseason.
Yeah, and especially because after last season, I think everyone knew that they were going to be in contention again. They always are. But you looked at the holes on the team, and they give up 41 points and 538 yards to Philadelphia, so people figured they'd probably go defense at the top of the draft if they're not going to go with a quarterback. Instead, they go offensive lineman, which they also need if Wynn is going to be the left tackle. And then running back, the Sony Michel pick is probably the most curious one of the whole draft because it's kind of out of character for what they've done basically throughout most of Belichick's tenure here. They only taken one back in the 1st round, which was Lawrence Maroney in 2006. They only took one in the 2nd round, which was Shane Vereen. So they've really been able to find guys later. But if you look at in the last 2 years, they've kind of had a shift in philosophy at that position. They were number 5 in the league in spending at running back last year, and people probably didn't view it that way because it's not like they had one really high-priced player. They just paid a good amount to 4 or 5 guys, and they're doing the same thing again this year. Plus, they invest a 1st-round pick in a back. So there's something has happened where they have started to see value at that position, and they're definitely devoting more resources to that spot than they have in past years. And the Sony Michel pick is evidence of that. And I think just from the way he'll fit in with the team, they have good players there. Rex Burkhead's good, has some injury issues. I think Jeremy Hill has a chance to be decent for the Patriots. James White's role is entrenched. Mike Gillislee got a lot of criticism last year. I don't think he's a bad back. They have bodies, but they don't have anyone really quite like Dion Lewis. Losing Lewis, who was by far the best playmaker in the backfield last season, will hurt. So Michel's probably someone who they view as having similar, not necessarily like the wiggle that Lewis does, but similar like breakaway potential and potential to create big plays. So it was surprising. we talked about it after. I thought on the day one, I was like, yeah, they won't draft a running back or interior lineman, and then there you go, they draft both those spots. So it just shows you, I don't know, you guys probably shouldn't listen to anything I say. I don't know much.
No, I mean, like, let's not underplay it too much. I mean, like, obviously, Patriots end up taking 2 linebackers here today, Christian Sam and Jawan Bentley. I mean, Bentley seems like he's more of a middle linebacker, thumper kind of guy. Someone that's more similar along the lines to, say, Landon Roberts, Brandon Spikes. Christian Sam is a more weak side linebacker, faster, good in coverage. I guess we thought that the Patriots would add a linebacker. Adding 2 here, it looks like they're just trying to maybe throw a couple guys at the position and see if one of them sticks.
Yeah, and that's the position on defense that I think people thought early on. The names were Rashaan Evans of Alabama, Leighton Vander Esch of Boise State. They thought early on that was the biggest weakness on the defense. And in bringing these 2 guys in, they're later round picks, but I think both, it's fair to say, would probably challenge Landon Roberts for a spot next year. And Landon Roberts ended up being basically a starter for them last year, and he was just really he was inconsistent. He was up and down. So as you said, the kid from Purdue is he was listed at 260. I think he's dropped some weight, and he's someone who's probably projects more as an early down player. His athleticism would come into question, but I think I've watched a little bit of him. He had a 76-yard interception return, and nobody caught him, including a receiver chasing him from behind. So I think the issue with him might be more of the short area change of direction than his straight line speed. And then Sam is a guy they brought in for a visit in the pre-draft process. He's a weak side linebacker. Probably could play on early downs too if they're in even like a 2 linebacker set. And he's had special teams experience at Arizona State. So I think, it's hard to, I'm not going to say either guys are locks to make the roster because that was so late in the draft, but both certainly will challenge Roberts for a spot.
Yeah, I mean, that late in the draft, 5th, 6th, 7th round picks, those guys are definitely not locks to make the roster. You look at a guy like Braxton Berrios, who's got to have a ton of competition. I mean, that wide receiver position for the Patriots right now has just so many bodies. He has the punt return ability on his side. He's sort of a guy that, you look at the players in college and everyone just points to Braxton Berrios and is like, that guy's a future Patriot. And like Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah, I don't know why you would say that.
I don't know.
But, that's crazy.
But it's funny because like that was like the joke, and then the Patriots end up taking him anyway. I mean, like he's a really talented player. I mean, what do you think about his chances of making the roster?
It's so hard to say, but there's a lot to like about him, and I think you knew a lot more about him coming out of the pre-draft process than I did. But he's small, and he's quick. He has the quickness of an inside receiver that you typically see. But if you go based on his 40 time, he's also really fast. Like he's got very good straight line speed. I think he ran the 4.4s, which is better than any of the those Patriot slot receivers. You're talking Amendola, even Edelman. Edelman's 40, I believe, was 4.57. So that's really not great. This guy is in 4.4 flat, 4.44. That's a lot faster. So he's a really, really good athlete. And as you said, the punt return capabilities, he'll have a chance. And I think it's going to be wide open competition for maybe 2 or 3 spots. You figure Julian Edelman's making the team, right? Chris Hogan, I would say, would probably make the team. I would be pretty surprised if he didn't make it. Then you get into the range of, Malcolm Mitchell probably, but he had that knee injury all of last year, and it really depends mostly on his health. Cordero Patterson, I think, is going to make it just because he's so dynamic as a kick returner and so good when you get him on screens and jet sweeps. Jordan Matthews, I think, is going to make it. He's had a lot of production out of the slot and is a bigger slot receiver, gives a different look. And then you have Kenny Britt and Philip Dorsett and Riley McCarron. Am I missing anyone? And Cody Hollister has just a very, very small chance of making it. But they have 9 or 10 bodies there, and probably 7 or 8 of them are pretty good players. So that is a loaded depth chart, and it's going to be tough for Berrios, but you never know. If he outshines Britt, Dorsett, if Matthews or Patterson is disappointing, you can certainly sneak on as a 6th guy if they elect to keep 6.
For sure, yeah. So and then we'll wrap things up here. We'll talk a little bit about the last 2 picks. Keon Crossan, cornerback from Western Carolina. Ryan Izzo, tight end from Florida State. Crossan's a guy that is sort of an athletic freak. Mm-hmm. He ran a 4.32 40-yard dash. broad jumped, I think, something like 10-11. And then Izzo is definitely not Rob Gronkowski. He ran like a 4.94 40-yard dash, big time blocker. Just what do you think about those last two 7th round picks?
Yeah, I mean, Crossan is really athletic just based on his numbers, but it's hard to say. One guy who comes to mind is Darryl Roberts, who they drafted a couple years ago, late 7th round pick out of Marshall. Also a phenomenal athlete. He couldn't stick in New England because, well, he did make the team. He was going to make the team his rookie year, I think, but he went on IR, and then his second year he got cut. They had a lot of depth at that position at the time. Roberts was immediately signed by the Jets when he got cut, and he actually started a good amount for the Jets. So you never know with a player that late. It could end up being that kind of situation where he's just squeezed out because, I mean, the Patriots are one of the best teams in the league, so it's theoretically harder to make their team as a late round pick than it is to make others.
All right, last thing, Nick Caserio just spoke to us. Just kind of, what was the most interesting thing that we learned from Caserio?
Takeaways from Caserio. He talked about, the most interesting thing, I guess, was talking about Etling, and he mentioned the low interception total for Etling. That was, I think, the first thing he brought up. He threw only 2 picks his senior year at LSU. His interception to pass attempt ratio was actually second in SEC history to A.J. McCarron. So the Patriots like that he takes care of the ball. He makes good decisions. Caserio basically said that he has traits that they feel like they can work with. And then he said a lot of other stuff that I don't remember.
You found him at the Tropical Bowl.
Oh, the Tropical Bowl, which I had never heard of. Yeah, he said it was kind of an off-the-radar, college all-star game that they got a good look at Etling at. So it just shows you the Patriots are, and as I'm sure most NFL teams are doing, like really just covering all their bases. He actually said the scouting department has just finished their initial reports on the 2019 draft. And that's when they first noticed Etling, when they were in the last year at this time when they were looking ahead to the 2018 draft. They'd done a lot of work on other LSU players, so they had just indirectly watched a lot of him. So he talked about that. He basically what else did he say about
he talked a little bit about Berrios. He talked about how Duke Dawson was a really talented player. Juwan Bentley and Christian Sammy sort of defined their roles. He used the word imbecilic.
Damn it, that's what it was. Yeah. That was hysterical.
Yeah, I mean,
all I can say is I enjoyed the 3 days. I wish we talked to Bill Belichick because ultimately he's the one making the calls here. So I think his opinion carries a little more weight than Nick Caserio's, but I could go to a Nick Caserio press conference pretty much any day of the week. The guy is highly entertaining. I really enjoyed. He's just got so much energy. Even I think today he was a little more relaxed, but Thursday night after they took Michelle and Isaiah Wynn, that guy was just on cloud 9. I don't know if he slept that night. He was just so excited.
Definitely. All right, well, we'll wrap things up there. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and we'll have plenty more draft coverage as the next couple days go on. Patriots minicamp, I think, starts on May 10th. So
rookie minicamp, May 10th. We'll talk to all the rookies beforehand, so I'm sure Danny Etling will be swarmed by cameras, and if the interview we had on the conference call is any indication, it's not going to go very well. We asked him a simple question: did you meet with Josh McDaniels in the pre-draft process? He said, I met with a lot of people, a lot of coaches.
He's ready to be a Patriot.
He is ready to be a Patriot, yes.
Yes. All right. Thanks, guys, for watching. We'll be back with you guys soon.